Welcome to the Têkkel talk show, and this evening I'm sitting outside, quite hot in. Yay, warm hier in Swartland, meneer. Sien, het is lekker buitenlug en the day is getting hot in here. Maar daar jou werk?
Nee, lekker weer. Die son gesak of is het nog steeds zo warm? Want vandaag was het bit.
Is nog 'n bietjie lug hier, is nog so 'n bietjie lug hier by ons, maar dit is warm. Dit is te warm vir my om in die studio te sit waar ek altyd sit. So nou is 'n setup, 'n manufactured setup. En ek het so 'n crowd hier wat sit en wat ek doen. Dit is nou meer van my kinders wat buite sit. Hulle sit nog buite.
Lekker man. Waar is hulle kan nie vir hulle wil sien nie. Waar is hulle?
Nee, hulle sien dit shot hier. Hulle is all around the place. So ja, nee, maar welkom by Tekkel. It's our last show for 20. It was an eventful series. I would say maybe two types of slots we had. One during the World Cup and then one for Rugby World Cup. But it was an eventful series and one that went very far. We ran in episode after episode. This will be our last one for 2023. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's lekker geweest. I think next year, and like we said before, next year we're going to be kicking off with guests, and we're going to be kicking off with a bang next year, and it's going to be very exciting. Obviously, this year we started with the World Cup in mind, the Rugby Cricket World Cup in mind, but going into the new year, we've got some awesome guests lined up. It's going to be very, very exciting, and and again, like our slogan says, Aini, encouraging a culture of recognition, and that's what it's about. And giving recognition to those people in our communities, that people make a difference. And that's what we do, and we're definitely going to be showing that, those icons come next year.
Yeah, no, for sure. And for those of you who missed the episode, I think it was the last week's episode, we had the opportunity to hook up with Têkkel and Kobe, a newly established foundation, and we will also be tracking that foundation to see how we as Tekkel can advocate the foundation is all about. But to Têkkel and Kobe, agents, and everybody who made it possible for the Tekkel Talk Show to be part of that episode. If you've missed it, you need to check it out. It's our feed, but it was a wonderful opportunity to meet one of the greatest rugby players, but also a rugby player from Cape Town, employing his trade now in Japan, as a Rugby World Cup champion who's giving back to communities, and that for us is so important to cover. So yeah, it was great, Derek, to have that experience as well.
Yes, and he's just such a humble guy. It's amazing to see, the world literally at his feet. People, calling his name, walk. He walks around as a humble guy, as if he's, literally still living in their communities. And I think his heart will always be there because he has a heart for that area and the Kraaifontein area, because that's where he comes from, and it just shows his humbleness. And also his wife Leila, I think they got their feet firmly on the ground, and I think that's beautiful to see. I think it will just bode well for them going as they travel the world and they're going to new adventures. At the moment they're in Japan at the moment, and I don't know if you saw, they announced that obviously they announced the signing, which is the Sun Goliaths, if I'm not mistaken. They announced their signings, and the other one being Sam Cane. Both players getting cards in the final, and the Japanese side managed to get both those, which is good acquisitions, and I think it's going to be a good way even for Sam Cane. I mean, we feel for Sam Cane in the World Cup and what actually transpired, but this could be a boost for his career. Definitely, I think that will happen. But yeah, I think Têkkel and Kobe, I think there's just big things and bigger things waiting for him.
No, for sure. So yeah, I think tonight's episode we're just going to briefly reflect. It won't be a long episode because we want to wish you well for the festive season. But I think it's important just to briefly reflect on 2023. It was ones where I think they had more highs than lows, but there were also some lows. But one of the certain highlights was that South Africa and Cape Town in particular hosted the 2023 Netball World Cup. It arrived, with a massive woo-ha, and did it deliver, under difficult circumstances, yes. And surely we did do very well as a national team. I think the expectation was there that perhaps this team can go all the way. Unfortunately, it was not to be. But all in all, I think this ladies, South African netball side did very well.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
drew a
yes.
lot of people to the Cape Town Convention Center, and we wished that they could go all the way, but it was not to be. And in the end, one of our strong opponents, I would say Australia, walked away with that thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you know, what a sporting nation Australia is. I mean, they dominate in so many facets of sport across the world. I think there's, I know, kudos to the Aussies, just the way they, you know, any kind of sport across the world, whether in basketball, you think the Americans, you know, would be top of the pile, which they are, but the Australians compete, you know, any kind of sport. They are such a good sporting nation, and I think that's why everybody loved beating the Aussies, you know. But I actually want to take you back to that I think, sorry, not semi-final. It was the group stages where the the the, the women's side, the Proteas women, they actually ended up going up against New Zealand in one of the group matches, and it was nail biting to the end. I think the Proteas were cut quite a drift towards the end, and they managed to come back. You know, handsomely, like if you would say handsomely, talking about a women's sport, but they came back beautifully to draw that game. It was in the dying seconds of the game where, you know, the Proteas scored and managed to draw that game. So, yeah, if you're New Zealand, it's been a tough year overall. Looking from cricket to rugby to netball en ook skaapskedery, Heini. Dat is Afrika
Yeah.
ook maar vir hulle bietjie les op gesê.
Yeah, no, but I think also, you know, it was a good legacy. I think they had the various communities involved with the netball
Yeah.
trophy tour, came all the way from Gauteng and finished up in Cape Town. And they had the various fan parks, and then obviously the nice big fan park where all the communities, all the netball fanatics, they were all welcome
Yeah.
to come to the ICC to spend the day there. And
Yeah.
I think Cape Town did very, very well to host, I think, a very, very successful Netball World Cup. And well done to the City of Cape Town, to SA Netball, to the sponsors involved. I think it was a great
Yeah.
World Cup. Well done then. We have to say well done to Australia. We also said well done to them in the Cricket World Cup. But like you said, very competitive team, but definitely a team that knows their sport.
Yeah, 100%. They, you know, that's why when we win playing, it's always lekker to win them, and it's just, and when you lose against them, it's not lekker to lose against them.
It's probably the worst team to lose against.
And
you know,
touch and go with the Engels, and touch and go.
Yeah, we touched on the ICT Cricket World Cup. Let's have a chat about that. We had a good start this World Cup. The Proteas started, you know, very, very well. You would look, you know, if you look back, it was probably one of the better starts to a Cricket World Cup for the Proteas side. Very, very good side. If you look at the episodes that we really thought that, you know, perhaps this is the chance. I think, you know, we said with that start, the momentum, with the various players getting 100 Quinton de Kock in the form of his life, Heinrich Klassen hitting a few big scores. We said we should make the semi-final, and then we I would say we almost got lucky with the semi-final draw, but it was just not to be. It was just not to be. You know, just we left the poor performances. We left for the stages. You know, losing against Netherlands, and then you know, one of our poor performances for the knockouts that really cost us. And now we reflect back and say it could have been so different.
Yeah, there's so much to be said. I think, you know, like they always say, it's the hope that kills you, man. But if you look at the previous World Cups, I think we mentioned it in, you know, 2 weeks ago. You look at the previous World Cups, I think we've had a more solid-looking team, even though they surprised us. I mean, you mentioned before that to get to the semi-final, I think we didn't actually expect it. I think if you look at the past performances of the last, you know, while, but they played fantastic, and they beat everybody except Netherlands and India to the final, or to the semis at least. But the expectation, you know, as the tournament was going on, the hope started building, started beating teams very convincingly. You know, the Sri Lankans and the Pakistanis by 1 wicket, but they beat teams that would sometimes be their bogey teams. You know, and they managed to beat those teams, then progress to a semi, and you were like, hey, this might be it. But if you look at the past World Cups, 2015 especially, touching on 2019 as well, but 2015. Probably the best team I think the Proteas could have possibly put onto a field in that tournament, and we still didn't manage. And it's not down to talent, it's not down to form, whatever. It's a mental thing, and I think that kind of showed at the end of the day. I think the players know what they know. Of example that they didn't bring their best in that moment, and yeah, it's just sad to lose against the Aussies. But yeah, it's one of those things. The Aussies have that BMT. They got what it takes to win cups. They know when to switch it on, and kudos to them. They pulled it off against a very strong Indian side at the end of the day, and they deserve to be World Cup champions.
Yeah, and you know, if you've told this Australian side that they would have needed to beat South Africa and India back to back, given the start that they had. To this World Cup, they would have probably not stopped themselves to get over the line. But they've beaten South Africa, who went into their fixture in the semi-final, I think, as the favourites. And then everybody said it's going to be tough to beat India in India with the lineup that India had. These Australians, they conquered, and there they are with the ICC Cricket World Cup trophy for 2023. So the Aussies walking away with the Netball Cup, World Cup, and also the Cricket World Cup. It's really, it's really achieved. The Aussies are celebrating deep into the new year.
Very interesting point there. I think they, looking at you mentioned the round robin games, they lost against India. I think it was the first game of the tournament. They lost against India pretty easily, I think, and then they lost against South Africa pretty easily, and they ended up coming back against those two teams when it mattered. And I think that is what BMT is all about, taking it on the chin, and then, being able to step up when it matters. And they just did that. So, yeah, well done to Australia.
Yeah, it's about building momentum.
So kom ons kry die Aussie uit die pad uit nou, man.
Kom ons kyk Aussies, ek dink hulle gaan feature by die Rugby World Cup. Ons gaan nou oor die Rugby World Cup praat. Dan is hulle well and truly uit die pad. Hulle was seker gemaak dat nêrens kom nie. Maar ek dink Alberic, is belangrik dat 'n man sê 'n tournament soos die is lank genoeg vir jou om te kom van back-to-back losses af waar jy regtig gedink het. And I can tell you, I thought to myself, this is probably not the Aussie World Cup. And then on the other hand, our team, the Proteas, went win-win, and it's not against who? Against Australia and Sri Lanka. They went win-win, and you would have expected them to go win-win-win against Netherlands. They just hit that speed wobble, and then from there, they got a little bit momentum. Okay, but I think you need to peak in the right times in these competitions. We saw the All Blacks in the Rugby World Cup lose their first game against France, and they didn't look the part even in their pool games. But then they just started to build momentum, started to get that big scores, and when it mattered, they were in form. And I would go as far as to say that going into that final, they were perhaps put by a lot of pundits as the favorite to take the cup of Springboks. But again, the Springboks going, I almost want to say 3-0 in Rugby World Cup finals. If they get to that final, it's something to behold. They know how to close it out. And I think in general, it's important that the Proteas specifically learn from this. They're still a young side. Yes, there's a few guys like Rassie van der Dassen that will not be there. Quentin de Kock will not be there. But guys like Aiden Markram, guys like Marco Jansen, you would probably think that they will be able to play another few years, and hopefully they will learn from this and make sure that you play the best games in the big stage. We've seen Virat Kohli play the biggest innings of his career when it matters. That is a sign of growth and a good side.
Glenn Maxwell, the same when it mattered.
Glenn Maxwell,
And just when it mattered, they needed to pull that one through, and they came through. And I think that, like, to your point, it just shows that winning. I mean, I think a couple of weeks, I think about a month and a half ago, we actually had a discussion on Têkkel about the All Blacks. And, after losing that game against the French in that first game, and I would say convincingly, I mean, the French were, it was kind of a iffy games, and the French kind of pulled away in that last, yeah. Well, either way, yeah. It was just that 1 or 2 moments at the end of the game. I think the All Blacks, like we know them, they scored early, 1 or 2 tries, and that kind of, gave them, oh, these guys are here to play. And going into the rest of the tournament, we actually had that discussion that the All Blacks are not looking as sharp as they were. And I think there was a lot of discussions, a lot of backroom talk about the fact that they managed to get a bit of more intensity into the breakdowns, a bit of more kind of grunt into that passage of the game, and it showed. I think they took teams on. They beat teams in collisions. I mean, one of the I think the final scrum, if I'm not mistaken, they gave a huge, massive scrum which could have gone the way, and it could have been a penalty. It could have been a penalty for Geordie. So yeah, I think they learned. They know when to switch it on. I mean, if you look at what happened, last year against the Boks on Ellis Park, and you can never take them for granted.
Yeah, and then obviously there is a local competition going around. So we're not, as South African franchises, not doing very, very good in that competition. It's called the United Rugby Championships, they're known as the URC. And obviously, we're looking at this competition and we think to ourselves, it's not going our way at all. But we are pretty excited to know that our Springboks in certain franchises, they will certainly be back. Yeah, they will be back soon. Yeah, it went all right for the Sharks this weekend. It went all right for the Sharks this weekend, but they tougher opposition. The Bulls on and off. The Stormers has gone back to back, losing, and then the Lions. They show potential, but they're struggling to get the results consistently. It's a really competition, and as it stands at the moment, we need to up our game if we want to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, 100%. And if we look at, I mean, we're looking back at the year, so we're looking at the tournament that started last year and went into the beginning of this year. But whether the Stormers left off last year, they just lost away, and it could be largely due to key players not being there. We know what a Damon Willems can do to an attack. We know what Mani Libbok will do on, and I think that's the one role I think we're missing at the moment. We're missing that at the moment, and I think even if we played Clayton Blommetjies on fly off, I think would have probably been would get us kind of back to that attacking play, because we just don't see that at the moment. We just almost look very blunt, almost uncreative. Like a Roos, ek weet nie wat dit is nie, but they just not sharing at the moment. But looking back at the year past, I mean, they ended up losing in the semi-final against a very spirited Munster. Munster, had a lot of traveling. I think they traveled across between Europe and South Africa twice in, I think, 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Playing I think they played the Sharks, if I'm not mistaken, and they beat the Sharks. And then going over and coming back again. But deservedly, they are champions. They played really, really well. Yeah, they were just amazing. I think that just shows. I mean, if you want to compare their schedule compared to the Boks, you would see why they are deserved, the way they played, and who they beat to get to that final and beat the Stormers in the packed Cape Town Stadium. And I mean that will gedoen wees. And and with that said, it was also Kitsy's final game under the Stormers brand, and we wish him farewell this year. He's playing for Ulster. So we wish him all the best. What a player! What a stalwart he's been for the Stormers for so many years. And we're gonna miss him. We're definitely gonna miss him.
It was just one step too far for the Stormers. And you would have expected the Stormers. They had everything going for them. Home ground advantage. Munster, having to come to Cape Town. Everybody was talking about the jet lag and the advantage, and then Munster, perhaps, in my opinion, produced a gem of a performance to
Yeah.
play a good Stormer side, a very, very good Stormer side. You look at the Stormer side that played in that final. A lot of them went on to represent the World Cup winning Springboks in that World Cup. You would have perhaps thought on paper and with all the influence that the Stormer side would have enough with the Cape Town crowd backing them all the way. It
Yeah.
was the team of monsters spoiling the party in Cape Town. But again, quality outfit. And I can tell you, Alberic, what I've noticed is that this competition, although it is, it's various clubs playing against each other, look at their sides, and you don't see the big names all clustered, the European names all clustered in one club. Whereas the Sharks, you would probably count to say you see a lot
Mm.
of Lucanio Am, Pimpi, Ebenezer, and those guys all clustered together. But what I am certain about is those clubs, especially the ones that is the non-South African URC clubs, they are really good, well coached. They're very compact. They are doing the basics very, very well. Even I would say the lesser teams, even coming to South Africa, we saw in Durban
Yeah.
the struggling to keep with the structure of certain teams. Yes, they got a very good result this weekend, but one thing is for sure that these clubs are very well coached, very compact, and you need to have something to break down their defense. They have also acclimatized very well. Remember when the Stormers went on to win this competition, the South African side prided themselves on brute force, power, force, physicality. All of a sudden now it seems to me the URC side have adapted that. They have countered it. They now know
Mm.
they need to be sharp, breakdown,
Good point.
smarter at the malls. And they're all of a sudden mixing it up with the South African side. Even the Bulls, that I believe is the most physical side of the South African franchises, they're bringing the physicality, but the opposition is absorbing that because they have now acclimatized and said, listen, this is what the South African side will bring you. You need to absorb those physicality and make sure that you get in behind him, make sure that you play tactically very well in the right areas, and if you can accumulate points through penalties. We've seen how many times, 9, 12 points, 15 points, all of them off the foot against you. All of a sudden, you're under pressure. And I think that is the big struggle for South African side. They need to be more creative because it can't be brutal force for 80 minutes.
100%. And that's, I think you hit the nail on the head because they've clearly adapted. They've clearly seen what we have to offer, and they've countered it. I think it's up to us now to come with that trump card. What are we going to come with now? And I think it's across the board we need to up our game. I think I always feel like we're suffering from a bit of World Cup hangover where the guys are still kind of, okay, we won the World Cup, but I mean they're not anyway playing close to whether they they World Cup players or not. They haven't played yet. You can see what a massive impact even Itzebeth had over the weekend, and guys like Mpimpi them. So those players are, will definitely show their hand. And coming back, I think this weekend there's obviously talks of Damien being back in the field. Mani was seen back at training today. So it's good to see those players, and then showing showing their skills in a tournament that's going to be it's going to be needed. I think we've come from behind in 2021 season. We've come from behind to win that tournament as a SA team, but it's time for for SA team to just to kind of change gears and play a bit smarter. To your point.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then over as we head into Christmas, for those in Cape Town, based in Cape Town or the Western Province, close to Cape Town, there's going to be a few lacquer fixtures in the Cape Town Stadium. We look forward to perhaps see you there. It's going to be, I think, La Rochelle visiting Cape Town. Is it La Rochelle from in the European or better known for us as the Heineken. And then also, I believe the Mighty Blue Bulls is heading to Cape Town for a fixture in Cape Town, close to Christmas. I think it's the 23rd or therearound when they will be playing in the town stadium.
I can say this: if there's a game that can get a South African team back on track, is a derby. You just get that if South Africa, whether it's a Lions team, South African team, whether it's Lions and the Sharks, and they're playing a derby, that you get the best quality rugby. So you might just get that might be the jump start that the Bulls need, and more to the Stormers, they would need that more than anybody else, just to kind of get them back on track and to winning ways at least.
Yeah, and then before we get to the World Cup, something that is big in the Boland at present, Alberich, is that this coming Saturday, we will have the top teams. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear. I can hear buzzing.
Yeah, so it's top teams in the Boland playing against each other, and we call it in the Boland, we call it the Boland Top 12 final, and it after the top 12 teams played in various round robin pool competitions. We saw the semi-final last week. Unfortunately, Westbank went down against Robertson Town, and the team of Darling lost against Safkol. We have Safkol from Gabou playing against Robertson in the final of Dance Club competition, and will be a packed stadium in Wellington at 4 o'clock on Saturday. We will crown a champion in the Boland Top 12 competition. It's going to be a very, very good rugby game. For me, I believe the two best teams in the competition made it to the final. Unfortunately, another heavyweight called Saldanha and another hot favorite called Roses United, they didn't even make it to the semis. But in my opinion, the two best sides made it through to the final. Unfortunately for the Swartland teams, Darling and Westbank, not to be, but next year they will have another shot at becoming the Boland Club Rugby champion. But from our side, to Safkol, Robertson, let's entertain the crowd and may the best fan win. Fan win.
Okay.
What did they, ladies? May the best win. May the best.
But it's exciting. It's really exciting to see, the turnout at these games. It's amazing to see, the type of rugby that's being played. It's just amazing. And I think there's a bubbling excitement in the Boland, especially with the new, the investors that's come on board. And I think that's going to just, bode well for the Boland region and for the union. So it's great to see, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, and we look forward to that. And, we will certainly make sure that Erasmus, so glad for all the new sponsors on board. Yeah, it's exciting times. We can already see the movement in the Boland fraternity. Hopefully, they make it happen and make sure that Boland go from strength to strength. And, we'll be there on Saturday to witness perhaps one of the bigger semi-professional club rugby games in the modern era of the Boland dispensation and Boland club rugby in general. And I'm pretty sure it will be a packed house. There will be a few curtain raisers. We will see the lower tier games also, and then the ladies final. But we will have the 4 o'clock. We will have the two massive heavyweights of rugby in Boland go toe to toe to slug it out to become that champion. So, like Richard is saying, exciting times, and you've mentioned it, Alberich. We're hoping that in the near foreseen future, we will certainly have an interview either with the administrators or the newly appointed coach, or even some of the investors to tell us what is going down in the Boland and how we can forecast a bigger Boland in the future, for not only for club rugby but even for the Cavaliers. We know the Cavaliers have produced various great players over the years, and now it's a time for them to make sure that those players stay in the Boland and that they become springboks from the Boland Cavaliers and not at another union.
I think so. I think it's a high time. I think if you look at the amount of Boland players that's playing in the Springbok setup, the Kirtleys, the Cadens, and those guys, they all come from the Boland. The Boland is a player factory. It's a rugby factory. There's some class talent across the whole Boland, and obviously the other provinces as well. But if you just look at how many talent goes there, it just comes out from the Boland. It's just sad to see them go over the years. You would see them go to the various unions because the Boland cannot keep them. But now with this injection of cash, they'll be able to keep those players. And like you said, they'll be able to go jump straight into a Springbok team. I think that's very exciting to see.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Before we say good night, obviously we need to brag one more time. We are back-to-back Rugby World Cup champions. It wasn't for the books. It was one where there were lots of ups and a few downs with injuries, key players, Malcolm Marx getting injured, a few controversial calls as well, not going our way. And then we had to win the semi-final. With 1 point, with 1 point, we had to win the quarterfinal with 1 point. It was just that World Cup where we were on the edge all the time, and there it is, the moment. The man in the center, Dion Fourie, almost 40 odd, winning a Rugby World Cup. And who would have scripted that better? That at that age, William Benambe goes down in the early minutes of the Rugby World Cup final, and Dion Fourie, at his ripe age, enters the fray and plays right up until the end. And guess what? When the final whistle blew, it was Springboks edging it out by 1 point against the mighty All Blacks. It was one for the books, Alberic.
Oh yes, this is definitely one of the moments. I think one of arguably the best Rugby World Cup win if you look at the opposition that we won. And I think this just shows testament to this guy's character. I actually forgot to ask when I met up with Cheslin 2 weeks ago. I forgot to ask him if he managed to come out from behind that SA flag, because it took him a while to get out of that from behind that flag. But yeah, and it's just a moment we are so proud. And yeah, just proud to be a South African, you know.
Look at that picture. That one will probably go down in the history. You know, remember the picture in 1995? There's one famous picture of Joe Kransky taking the drop goal. And the picture was taken from behind the post. And guess what? If you count all the players, it was a very wide shot. You could get everybody in. If you count all the South African players, you would come to 14 players. Because Chester Williams was the one player that was directly behind the post. When that, let's call it the famous picture of Joe Kransky, when that drop goal went through, Chester Williams were flush behind the post. And this picture of Cheslin Colby, everybody, hands in the air, himself struggling to get out of the South African flag around his head, will probably go down the history books as a very memorable one.
Oh yes, I mean, if you look at that photo, it just says, unity all over. It shows what we're all about. South Africans know that when it's World Cup time, they know what to bring, and I think that's the exciting part about when the World Cups come around. The Boks are always going to be, one of the favorites. Richard saying Pieter Step de Tooi also Boy. Yep. Wellington is ek reg het, né? Wellington. Of is dit Rugby Kasteel?
Pieter Step de Tooi is van hy skool gegaan in Mamasbury en hy is sy pa natuurlik 'n baie groot wynboer in die Rugby Kasteel area. En dan moet mense nie vergeet Willie Leroux instrumenteel vir die Cavaliers gewees in sy vroeë dae. Hy is Bel van Strand, hy het sy carrière begin by die Boland Cavaliers. Hy was 'n ongelooflike goeie rugby speler vir die Boland Cavaliers. So kan 'n man verskeie name opnoem, nie net van ouens wat in die World Cup was, maar die Stefan ter Blaanse, Cornel Hendricks, Henny Dander, is almal ouens wat by die Cavaliers begin het en later bekende McNeil Hendricks wat Springbok geraak het, Russell East van Mamasbury en vir die Cavaliers 'n paar
Wayne Julius, Marius Hubert,
John Daniels. Ja, so is groot name wat ons kan opnoem, die almal hier uit die Boland kom. So ja, dankie Richard vir dit. Maar Alberic, ons moet ook net onthou, daar was 'n paar kykers wat ons ongelukkig aan die dood afgestaan het gedurende hierdie seisoen, en ons gaan nou die feestyd gaan ons binne en aan hulle families wil ons alles toewens. Hulle was kon ek sê contributors tot die show, en dit is nie 'n lekker tyd om hierdie kom ons sê die festive season in te gaan met daardie memories, maar ons weet dat hulle herinneringe natuurlik soete herinneringe is, so ook aan hulle families. Maar LB, dit is festive, soos jy sê, dit is ons laaste show, dit is festive daar buite, En natuurlijk gaan die mense 'n bietjie hulle self geniet. Ons gaan ons sosiaal vat 'n breek. Ons sien julle so middel Januarie en Februarie wanneer ons nuwe reeks begin. Ons gaan 'n bietjie beplan doen, ons gaan 'n bietjie oproep met mense, ons gaan 'n bietjie seker maak dat ons self 'n bietjie ontspan met ons families en julle self wat ons kan doen. En moet veilig wees, ja, werk. Jy gaan seker 'n bietjie Bali toe weer. Bali toe.
nee, Bali enige tyd anytime soon at least. No, we're keeping it local. I want to be at home and yeah, it's just going to spend some time with family. It's going to be amazing. And I think also, I think everybody just feels their body kind of slowing down this time of year. So I'm one of them. So you guys are out there, please enjoy, be responsible, be safe. We want to see you guys in 2024. It's going to be a massive year. It's going to be a great year. And yeah, there's a lot of, we're going to have a jam-packed year next year, and we're going to be, Têkkel will be there, and we can't wait to see you guys next year.
No, for sure. So from us, thank you for tuning in each and every third evening. I think it was just a wonderful, wonderful year with a lot of banter. I think the Rugby World Cup just ended on a big, big high, not only for Tekkel, not only for South Africa, but as a global, even France, the host, you couldn't have scripted this better to go into that final and perhaps have the most historic rugby game in history to top it between the All Blacks and the Springboks, and then the Springboks to go back to back. So in the festive season, to you guys who've been with us right up until the first episode of this series, stay safe. If you're driving, please back up, make sure you're always sober, and make sure that you adhere to the speed limits. If you're going to swim, stay safe. And if you're going to have a good time, let's make sure that we keep to our limits. So from our side at the Tekkel Talk Show for 2023, we are out, and we hope to see you and our very as you in 2024 when we hit the ground running with another hot series of Tekkel Talk Show, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, werk. Aan jou en jou gesin. Ek is seker ons gaan mekaar nog daar raak op die Kaapse stadion. Maar ook 'n paar manne gesin. Maar julle moet veilig wees. En dan niet tot volgende week, tot volgende jaar. Tekkel Chat, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Stay safe. Yo. Bye bye.